Alright, so tell us a little bit about you.
So, my name is Joe. I'm 54 years old. I'm married. I have two boys, grown. I've lived in Minnesota just about my whole life. And I had something happen to me a few weeks ago, and I wanted to share it with people. And it was kind of a struggle of how to do it, whether I wanted to make a video or not, which I'm doing now, obviously. But it was a hard decision to make, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But really why I'm here is I want to share this story with people. I feel it's important, and I feel like God wants me to do this. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm doing this.
So, tell us some things that maybe we need to know.
So there's some things that have happened to me over my life, over the course of decades really, that kind of bring us to this story, and it's kind of important to know. And some of those things are, so for example, my faith and religion. I'm a Catholic. I was brought up Catholic by my parents. But in my early 20s, I actually found myself, I drifted from the church. I stopped going, and they're for a lot of different reasons. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I had some things happen to me that brought me back to the Catholic Church. And it's been a good move for me. It's been for me. But that's where I am religiously, and with that, I should mention too, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I do believe we're in the end times, as the Bible prophesizes. Another one, and this is kind of maybe funny or a little interesting, but I am a huge Pink Floyd fan. I have been about my whole life, and we'll get into some of that when we get into the story a little bit. But a lot of people, they've even mentioned to me that I'm a Pink Floyd walking encyclopedia. But the thing about Pink Floyd that I really want people to understand is I know a lot of people think that Pink Floyd has to do with drugs, that this is what they were all about, and everybody that listens to them, it's all about the drugs. And I gotta be honest, I can kind of understand why. They have a psychedelic feel, and the light show that they put on at their concerts, it took you to a different place. Very interesting. But the thing that I think most people miss when it comes to Pink Floyd is their message, because they don't talk about drugs, not in the form of what people think that they do. They have messages of hope and inspiration, and how those have abused authority, and they're anti-war, anti-hate. But most importantly, and we'll get into this with my story, is the message of hope that they can often spread. The other thing I'd like folks to understand is about 6 months ago in January, I had a stroke. I consider myself very lucky. It affected my cerebellum. For those that don't know, I was in Duluth. I was with my wife, and I just started getting a headache, and my left side of my face started going numb, and then I started losing control of my left side of my body, and that's when I knew something was wrong. And we went to the hospital by ambulance. And the reason this is important is because something that happened at the hospital, and this was when I first arrived in the ambulance, and I remember how big this bay was for the ambulances. I mean, it looked like you could have fit about a dozen with a couple fire trucks. But that's where it got interesting, because I blacked out, and it's the only time that I blacked out during the whole episode. It wasn't very long. I woke up in the emergency room with 2 nurses on each side and a doctor, along with the television with a doctor calling from San Francisco. That's another story for another time. But The point that I wanted to bring up was about blacking out. And there wasn't any visions or anything that would have struck me. It was just the one time that I know I completely blacked out. And it wasn't at that moment, but really a couple months later, I started thinking this, because things started to change for me after my stroke. Of course, things are going to change. But things looked different. Things didn't seem right. It just felt as if something was terribly off. And it reminded me of a prayer that I made in my early 20s. You see, I don't ask God for much. I've asked Him for two things my whole life. One was after watching neighbors growing up that both of them had bad backs, and I prayed to God that, you know, when I get older, please keep my back healthy. Well, I figured I either didn't pray hard enough, or God felt I was strong enough to endure the back pain that I deal with today. But the other prayer that I had came in my early 20s, where I was getting frustrated with waiting on people. And an example of that is somebody would say, "Hey Joe, come pick me up at 3 o'clock this afternoon." And I would get there at 3, but they weren't ready to go until 3:30. So I always felt like that was a half hour of my time wasted that you couldn't really get back. So I prayed to God that when it would be the end of my time, you know, here it is, this is when your life's supposed to be over, I prayed that you give me all the time back that I spent waiting on people. Now, whether or not that prayer was answered, I mean, I'm still here after the stroke, after that blackout, but I really started to question what was happening to me. You know, was this part of my prayer? Am I in purgatory? Am I even alive? I mean, this is the way I felt. Just everything looked off, and the way people were around me just seemed so different. But it made me think about this prayer quite a bit.
So you made the mention earlier, fear of a video. Why video?
So yeah, this was a struggle, whether I wanted to make a video or not. And the reason is because when I've posted things on social media in the past that has something to do with politics or religion, it's like the naysayers crawl out of the woodwork, and it can be frustrating. And what I decided to do, or what I felt I was called to do, was start talking to people. A couple very good friends of mine, I'm not going to mention their names, but going back to high school and grade school, for different reasons. One, a lot of personal, religious things that have happened to her in her life, and my Pink Floyd buddy. She'll know who that is. But if there's anybody that knows Pink Floyd better than me, would be her. And I go to her a lot of questions about Pink Floyd, so I thought to ask her as well, along with my wife. So one of the things that, while I was contemplating making this video, I started seeing a lot of videos coming up from different people, and a lot of children who are saying that they're seeing Jesus, they're talking to Jesus, deceased relatives, very spiritual things happening to them, and things that they wouldn't know, quoting Revelations. I mean, I'm 54 and have a hard time understanding the book of Revelations, but I mean, for a kid, that it becomes very convincing. And these things started pointing me towards, yeah, you should make this video. But the most important thing comes from one of the people that I talked to, and it was a little bit of a wake-up, and it has to do with the book of John, chapter 15, verse 18, that says, if the world hates you, realize it hated me first. And when you start thinking in those terms, you start realizing how petty it was for me to even consider making a video. But some of the things that I had done, I changed some of my pictures on Facebook to try to bring attention to this one particular song as well the shirt I'm wearing. I purchased this, which is the artwork to the song, and we'll get into that in a little bit as well.
So tell us about your miracle.
So yeah, my story, my miracle occurred on Friday, July 11th, late in the evening, sometime after 11, maybe into Saturday morning before 2 o'clock. But I was sitting in the living room and I was watching YouTube. That's pretty much what I live on, either YouTube or Netflix. And I was watching some of the videos of what's been happening in China. And if you're unaware, I'm not going to get into it too much, but they've been experiencing massive floods, mudslides that are taking out entire villages and cities. Cities are underwater. It's just an absolute catastrophe. And since then, it's happening elsewhere as well. But the video became upsetting to me, so I decided to find something else. And one popped up that I had been seeing for a while, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should watch this one. And it had to do with Edward Casey, and if you're not familiar with him, they called him the Sleeping Prophet. Died in 1945, I believe, but in his sleep he would prophesize and give medical treatments when he wasn't even educated in anything to do with the medical world, and a lot of prophecies. And what people were doing was they would sit next to him while he was sleeping, and they would write down things that he was saying. And one of the prophecies that he talked about happens to be looking like it might be happening now. It's also in the Bible, but that was upsetting enough for me to turn that off and find something completely different. Well, as I said, I love Pink Floyd. And as I was combing through the videos, I found a reaction video to a Pink Floyd song called On the Turning Away. It was a multi-reaction video with several people all watching the same video, and somebody had taken all these videos and put them together. And one of the reasons why I love watching these reaction videos is here, you know, I've been a fan for life and understood what they were about and what they're saying. And I'm watching these people experience it for the first time. And it's very enlightening to watch something you've enjoyed your whole life, and then seeing somebody enjoy it for the first time, whether they're younger or older. It's very inspiring. Well, I start watching this video, and as I'm really watching these people's emotions, it's really starting to get to me. And that's when it started. I heard God's voice. I know it was God's voice. I know God has talked to me several times in my life, but through ways of showing me things, never actually speaking to me. And I didn't even recognize it at first. It was just a very strong male's voice, very powerful. You hear about it was angelic, or it sounded like trumpets. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a very confident, strong man's voice that was in my head, but it was not me. The Pink Floyd fans might get a kick out of that one. But I looked around the room when I heard this voice. My wife was sleeping. I knew it wasn't her. We do have a roommate, and he lives in the basement. He actually owns the property that we live on, but I knew he was sleeping, so I knew it wasn't him. But what the voice said to me was, "This is why I showed you Pink Floyd at a young age." And I didn't quite understand it at first. I didn't know what I was hearing. I just knew it was something important. You know, I talk to myself all the time, sing to myself. I know what I sound like in my head. This just was not me. So I start thinking, you know, when do I remember the first time hearing Pink Floyd? It was when I was 4 years old. I can hardly remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, let alone tell you what I was doing when I was 4. But it happened, I was with a couple friends from the neighborhood with their mom, and she was driving us, and she had a black van. And we were sitting in the back. These old 70s black vans, they had the couch seats and the carpet from the ceiling to the floor, and the couch seating in the back, and it was a fun car to ride in. But as we're driving, I remember hearing the song Money. I no idea who sang the song, what the name of the song was. It's just me and my buds, we knew it was a good song. I mean, so we knew it had to have been played, but that is the first time I remember hearing Pink Floyd. And I start thinking about that and continue with that. You know, well, when's the next time that I recalled hearing Pink Floyd? And this came around 79, 1980, somewhere's in there, when Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 came out, and that was off the wall. And of course, if you're unfamiliar with that song, that's the one, "Hey teacher, leave them kids alone." And when you're in 4th grade, that song kind of becomes an anthem. But what it did was it brought me to buy my first Pink Floyd tape. Yes, I said tape. When I found out the name of the song, that's what took so long. I knew that it was Pink Floyd, but once I found the name of the song, I went, and the first tape I could find with that song on it happened to be a best of called A Great Collection of Dance Songs. Now, even though there were 6 other songs on that album, I only listened to the one. I mean, rewind, play, that's all I was interested in. This is when God said to me, this is when I reminded you of Pink Floyd. Now, the funny thing about this is, now this is the second time I'm hearing this voice, and I'm still really not sure what it is. I'm not recognizing that it's God. I'm just starting to think, okay, I'm going crazy, right? You know, one of these people that, the voices in my head told me to do it. That's kind of what I felt like. But I'm becoming a little more emotional with it, because I'm watching these people. It's becoming a little more emotional for me. And as I continue thinking about Pink Floyd, and the next time I really connected with them was in 1987 or 88, when they came out with A Momentary Lapse of Reason. And on that album is the song On the Turning Away. For whatever reason, at that time, when I was 17 years old, that song grabbed me like nothing else ever did. I couldn't get enough of the song. I never heard a piece of music like that before in my life, to the point I really wished I would have written that song. I was actually jealous of David Gilmour and Anthony Moore for writing that song. I wanted to write it, but it just connected to me in a way that I've never been connected to music before. So when that song came out, and when I found it, and I just was so drawn to it, and I'm thinking all of this as I'm continuing watching this video, that's when the voice tells me, this is when I hooked you to Pink Floyd. At this point, I almost feel like hiding, because I'm starting to realize what's going on at this point, and it's actually starting to frighten me. I'm starting to think, why? Why is God talking to me? Why is this happening to me? And it's at that moment I am just completely overwhelmed with what's happening to me. Watching these people's reaction, where I'm watching them cry. I'm watching them being taken back by the sound of the music, by the lyrics, by the size of the crowd that's in the video. All of these things are just kind of overtaking me emotionally. It was then, when I was wrapped up in these emotions, that the voice said to me, now do you understand why I had you show so many people Pink Floyd? It was to give those who needed hope the most. At this time, I was a blubbering mess because I realized that God just told me what my mission in life was. And it was to spread the message of hope. And for 2 days, I sat confused and unsure what to do with all of this stuff. So what I did was I spoke to a bishop in the church. And in speaking with him, he more or less confirmed to me what I believed, that yes, indeed, God did talk to me. And he told me, the bishop told me, that it happens more often than you realize. And I found that interesting. But what really woke me up in talking to the bishop was when I was telling him about my prayer and when I blacked out during the stroke. He didn't ask me any questions. He didn't say, well, was there any visions? Did you hear any voices while you were blacked out? There was no questions. He simply looked at me and said, Joe, what are you doing with your time? And I'll tell you what, that's a wake-up call. When you really question, sure, a lot of my time I've been recovering with my stroke, but that doesn't mean I'm completely incapable of doing anything. And I had to question after that, what was this really? Was this, I'm going to show you what I've had you do your whole life. Mission accomplished, good job. Or, you've been doing great, keep up the good work. Or was it, you've been doing very good, now it's time to step it up a notch. And I have a belief that it's the latter of those, that I was supposed to do this. And there's a message that I'm trying to spread with this.
And what is that message?
It's a message of hope. I mean, we're going to attach a link in the description of this video to the song On the Turning Away. And that video it's a fan-made video, and it really will show you what the message of that song is. And it really comes down to hope and spreading that hope. You see, to turn away, to be on the turning away, you're looking away from those who need us most. And it doesn't matter who it is or what you can afford to do. I can't afford to do much of anything, but I figure if one person I can smile at, and it gives them hope. The cost of a smile for somebody's happiness, how simple is that? Is it the guy across the street that needs your help, or is it the people in China that are suffering? It's about spreading hope. That, let me put it this way. My wife has a little magnet she keeps by the bed that she wakes up and looks at every morning that says, it'll be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And I have to take that into consideration, that my mission isn't done. My mission is to continue to spread the message of what Pink Floyd has been spreading. It's hope. It's to inspire people to understand that no matter where you are, there's always hope. There'll always be hope. That's what this is all about.